By 4:19 p.m., Verity Trauma Center already felt like it was running out of air. Monitors beeped in uneven patterns. Gurney wheels squeaked on the tile. Someone swore at a jammed suction line in Trauma 2. The whole emergency department hummed a low electrical buzz of voices, alarms, and metal on metal. Riley Kane adjusted a fluid drip on bed 6 and tried to keep her breathing steady. Saline bag check. Line clear. Catheter taped. The post-op patient on the bed was dozing, mouth slightly open, smelling faintly of antiseptic and old cologne. The overhead light washed his skin in flat yellow. Riley focused on the numbers on the monitor, the comfort of simple math. Heart rate sat as blood pressure. Behind her near the nurses' station, 2 senior nurses leaned close over a clipboard. "She froze yesterday when that kid coded," one murmured, like totally blanked. "Quiet ones don't last in trauma," the other replied. "They look good on paper, then the blood hits the floor." Riley did not turn. The walls in Verity were not thick. Sound traveled easily. So did judgment. She tightened the clamp another fraction, checked the drip again. Her fingers were steady. That was something. She stepped back from the bed and let her eyes do what they always did when she was not forcing them to behave. Sweep catalog measure. 2 exits in this bay. 1 main hall, 1 fire door. Blind corner by the supply closet. Portable ultrasound parked half in the doorway where someone could trip over it. Security badge on the nearest guard clipped too loose. He would lose it if someone grabbed at it. It was an old habit, this constant counting of ways out and ways in. She did not remember the first time she started doing it. Only that it had kept her alive long enough to end up here in scrubs instead of sand-colored gear. She shifted slightly so that her back rested against the wall, not the open room. Her body recognized the position before her brain did. Cover behind view in front. A clock over the nurse's station ticked each second, a tiny click that seemed louder than it should. Tick. Riley dragged her gaze back to the chart on her tablet, forcing herself to read the meds list that she already knew by heart. The doors at the end of the corridor slammed open, hard. The sound cut through the buzz like a snapped bone. Coming through, clear the hall. Security barreled in, first 2 guards pushing a stretcher so fast the wheels left gray streaks on the floor. An oxygen tank rattled against the side rail. An IV bag swung wild, slapping softly against metal. Behind the guards came uniforms. Army dress greens, medals glinting under the fluorescence, crooked, shattered, soaked in red. The man on the stretcher was older, face, ashen hair clipped close. A 4-star cluster on his shoulders bent, 1 point snapped clean. His dress shirt was open and sodden crimson, spreading fast, from a small hole high on the left chest. "Gunshot at the parade," someone shouted. "Left anterior chest, lost consciousness en route." The whole department seemed to inhale and hold it. "Is that General Alden?" a tech whispered. "That is General Victor Alden," one of the soldiers answered, voice clipped and flat. "Do not let him die." Riley did not move from her spot near bed 6, but the world in her body shifted. Something slid into place, cold and sharp. Her eyes found the wound without effort. Entry just medial to the left nipple line, a little too close, a little too clean. The kind of hole that never arrived alone. Behind it, something always waited. Fragment shockwave blood in the wrong space. "Trauma 1 now," Dr. Marcus Hale barked as he strode in mask, hanging loose around his neck. He was taller up close than he looked from the OR gallery, sleeves pushed to his elbows, hands already reaching for gloves. "I want ultrasound at bedside. Move." The general's gurney vanished into Trauma 1, the curtain snapping closed a fraction of a second later. For a moment, Riley stayed where she was. Her chest felt tight, but not from fear. It was something else. Recognition, maybe. Muscle memory waking up. "Riley, get the crash cart in there," one of the charge nurses said. She shoved the heavy cart toward Trauma 1, wheels bumping over the door frame, the metal drawers rattling like teeth. Inside the room was a blur of bodies. BP is tanking. Rhythm is irregular. "Get that shirt off. No, cut it, do not wrestle with it." The smell hit her first. Fresh copper under old antiseptic. It was cleaner than other blood she remembered, but the core of it was the same. Dr. Hale stood at the head of the bed, eyes on the portable ultrasound screen. Gel glistened on the general's chest. A resident held the probe, hands shaking. "Look at the effusion," the resident said, voice higher than normal. "Is that tamponade?" Riley parked the crash cart by the wall, trying to be invisible. The monitor to her left screamed a fast, unstable rhythm. Oxygen hissed through the mask over Alden's nose and mouth. His chest rose in short, shallow pulls that looked more like flinches than breaths. "All right," Hale said. His voice had changed. It was lower, slower. "The bullet is hugging the pericardial border. We got fluid building." He squinted at the screen in the small, echoing slice of heart and shadow. "If I open this wrong, I blow the ventricle and we lose him on the table." Nobody spoke. A nurse held out a tray, metal instruments lined like silver teeth. The air in the room thickened. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate between seconds. Tick. Riley heard the words, but what she saw was not the screen. It was another chest, another life in a cramped medical tent where the walls shuddered with concussion. She heard someone yelling for more light, smelled diesel and burned fabric. Sand in her teeth. Her gloved hands inside an open cavity, feeling the shape of a heart that did not want to beat anymore. Her own voice younger and hoarse. "You are coming in too high, sir. You are going to nick the sheath." In Trauma 1, her hand tightened on the cart handle. "Doctor," she said before she could stop herself. Hale did not look at her. "Not now, nurse." Her throat went dry, but the words kept coming. "You are coming in too high." The resident glanced over his shoulder. A tech frowned. The general's heart rate skipped on the monitor. Hale snapped, sharper eyes still on the screen. "I said not now." Riley's fingers ached from how hard she was gripping the metal. The old world and this one overlapped, edges blurring. It felt like standing on a bridge with the boards missing in the middle. "If you open at that angle," she said, "you risk tearing the ventricle." Now he turned. His gaze jumped from her name badge to her face. He did not look amused. "And how exactly would you know that Nurse Kane—" "Because I held a pericardial sheath while a man bled out under mortar fire. Because I have watched 3 hearts stop and only got to restart 1. The answers flashed through her mind. None of them touched her tongue. She inhaled once steady. "If you approach inferior lateral," she said, "sweep under the sheath and lift 2 millimeters, you can get to the bullet without compromising the ventricular wall." Silence pressed in around them. 2 millimeters, Hale repeated, his eyebrows pulled together. "That is very specific." Her eyes flicked to the screen, then to the general's chest. "It is enough." The monitor chirped faster, then slower, as if the heart itself were listening and deciding how much time to give them. Tick. Hale looked back at the ultrasound. He studied the shadowed crescent hugging the heart. Then he looked at the instruments, then at Riley again. If he told her to get out, he could still blame the loss on the injury. On the angle. On bad luck. If he listened to a rookie nurse who talked like she had spent time in a combat hospital, there would be no one else to blame. "All right," he said. The word fell heavy. "Walk me through it. You are not touching anything, you are only talking. Understood." Riley nodded once. She moved closer to his left, careful not to bump the resident with the probe or the line of sight to the monitor. She smelled the sharp alcohol on Hale's gloves mixed with the iron of Alden's blood. "Start lower," she said quietly. "Come in inferior lateral. Yeah, there. Feel that edge." Hale adjusted his hand. His jaw was tight. "Ease under it. Do not push, let the tissue give." The room watched their hands, their faces, the screen. "Now lift," Riley murmured. 2 millimeters. The sheath shifted. On the ultrasound, the dark pocket of fluid changed shape, opening a narrow corridor of space. "Stop there." The angle of the instrument lined up with the small bright fleck in the shadow. "Bullet is right there," the resident breathed. "Clamp," Hale said. He moved with a precision that had not been there a minute earlier. In a few breaths, the room changed. The monitor leveled into a more regular rhythm. The numbers climbed. The oxygen saturation ticked up. Riley could feel her own heart pounding in her neck, but her voice stayed even. "Keep your lift," she said. "Do not drop that sheath until the cavity is clear." Seconds stretched, then snapped. "Got it." Metal rasped against metal. Blood slid into the suction tube. Hale held up a small deformed slug between forceps. The general's pulse steadied. The collective exhale in the room felt like a wave. Someone laughed short and shaky. The resident muttered, "Holy God," under his breath. "Stabilize him and get him up to ICU," Hale ordered. The command was back in his tone. "I want cardiothoracic on standby." The team moved. Lines were secured, dressings taped. The bed unlocked and rolled away, taking the general the blood and the immediate danger with it. Riley stepped back until her shoulders touched the wall again. Her legs felt lighter than they should, like they might forget how to hold her. The room had emptied except for a tech wiping down the counters and Hale stripping off his gloves. He turned toward her. The bright surgical light above him cast deep shadows into the lines of his face. "That technique," he said. His voice was not angry now, just careful. "That was not something you pick up from a YouTube video." Riley held his gaze. "I pay attention," she said. His eyes dropped for a second to her hands. Small scars marked the skin along her knuckles, pale against the pink. "I'm sure you do," he said. The noise of the trauma bay came back in pieces. First it was the distant ring of a phone at the nurse's station, then the roll of another stretcher, then someone laughing too loudly at a joke that was not very funny. By the time Riley stepped out of Trauma 1, the world had already started to pretend nothing extraordinary had happened. The general was gone, pushed toward the elevators with a swarm of uniforms around him. The curtain she had just slipped through hung open, stained with a few bright drops of blood that nobody had wiped up yet. Riley stripped off her gloves and dropped them into the biohazard bin. Her fingers felt lighter without the latex, too light. At the central desk, a television mounted in the corner played a local news channel with the volume turned down. The caption running across the bottom read in bold letters, "Veterans Parade Shooting in Downtown Phoenix." Grainy phone footage of the parade flickered above the headline. Flags, confetti, then a jerk of the camera, and people diving for cover. No image of the hospital yet, no mention of a nurse. Not yet. She signed off on a medication chart for bed 6 and tried to slip back into the rhythm of her shift. Vital signs, meds notes. Move, move, move. The elevator had swallowed up the crisis and taken it to another floor. That was supposed to mean the emergency was over. It did not feel over. At the medroom doorway, the 2 senior nurses from earlier had a phone between them, faces close enough that their hair almost touched. "They say he is some 4-star big deal," one whispered. "Security told Mark there were Secret Service at the front entrance." "This place is going to be a circus," the other said. "You hear about the nurse who talked the doc through chest surgery like she has done it 100 times. Riley picked up a tray of syringes and pretended to read the labels. "Nah," the first nurse replied. "Probably just some rumor. Residents always exaggerate when they do not understand something. Or she is secretly a genius and we are all idiots." They both laughed softly. Riley walked away. The rest of her shift blurred into a long series of small tasks that did not leave enough room for thought. Start a line in room 4, change a dressing in room 9, help turn a patient who could not move on his own. Every time she paused, her mind slipped back into trauma 1, to the feel of the air in that room, when everything had gone quiet, to the weight of Hale's eyes on her face. She caught Dr. Hale only once more before shift change. He was speaking with a man in a dark suit just outside the closed doors of the ICU. The man wore a short haircut and the sort of expression that did not belong to family members. Riley did not hear the words, only saw Hale gesture toward the elevators, then toward the emergency department, then shake his head slowly. The suited man looked through the glass at General Alden, then at Riley as she walked past. His gaze slid over her badge, over her features, then away as if cataloging, not truly seeing. She kept walking. By the time her shift ended, the sky outside had turned the soft, dusty orange particular to Phoenix evenings. Streetlights flicked on, one by one, halos of sodium light pooling on the cracked asphalt of the hospital parking lot. Riley stepped through the automatic doors and into the cooler air. For a moment, she just stood there, feeling the difference on her skin. Inside had smelled like chemical cleaner and sweat. Out here it smelled like hot concrete cooling and distant exhaust. Her backpack was light on her shoulder. She had never gotten used to carrying heavy things after she left the service. She kept the weight in other places, now deeper in. The parking lot was half full. Residents hurried past her, already pulling phones from their pockets. A medic smoked near the ambulance bay, head tipped back, eyes on the dimming sky. Riley walked toward her, car keys in hand. Her footsteps sounded too loud in her own ears. Halfway to her usual spot, something on her left caught her attention. Not a sound, not even a movement, just a shape that did not fit. There, near the far edge of the lot where the pavement met a chain-link fence, someone stood under a street lamp. The light did not quite reach his face. It painted his shoulders, and the top of his head left everything below the eyes in shadow. His hands were in his pockets. His feet were planted at a slight angle, one forward, one back, weight centered. Riley slowed. From a distance, he could have been any visitor waiting for a ride. But there was nothing casual in the way his spine stacked, in the way his head turned just enough to track her, not enough to show his whole profile. Her heart ticked up a notch. She told herself to keep walking. She did. Each step felt like it had to be manually ordered. He did not call out. He did not wave. He simply watched her walk to her car, as if confirming that she was real, that she moved the way he remembered. When she reached the driver's side door, she forced herself to glance in his direction. Just once. The angle was different now. The light picked out the line of his jaw, the edge of an old scar near his temple, the glint of eyes that did not flinch from hers. Recognition flared in her chest, sharp and uninvited. Not of his face, which she could not truly see, but of the way he held the space around him. Alert, contained, ready to spring or vanish without wasting motion. Every cell in her body knew that stance. Riley unlocked the car, got in, and closed the door. She clicked the locks down out of habit. The interior smelled like sun-warmed fabric and the faint trace of coffee from an old spill. She did not start the engine. Her hand rested on the keys without turning them. Through the windshield, the street lamp halo turned the man into a cutout of light and shadow. He had not moved, not a single step. Her pulse drummed in her ears. Call security, a sensible part of her suggested. Have someone else walk over there with a flashlight and a question. Let this be nothing. Another part of her, older and quieter, told her that whatever this was, it was already far past the point of nothing. The phone in her scrub pocket buzzed. The vibration made her flinch harder than she wanted to. She pulled the phone out and glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Her thumb hovered, then she unlocked it. A single text waited. "Nice work today, Doc." The words were simple. They landed like a punch. Nobody at Verity called her that. On the badge, she was Nurse Kane. On the schedule, she was Riley K. To the doctors, she was Nurse, or you, or hey, can you grab me a set of labs? Doc was from another life, from nights in a valley with no name and days in a tent that smelled like bleach and burned rubber. The man under the street lamp did not move. Riley's fingers tightened around the phone. She glanced at the number again. No name, just a string of digits she did not recognize. No area code that meant anything obvious to her. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window next to the message, faint and double. The hospital behind her, the parking lot, lights the shape of the man under the lamp. The clock on the dash clicked over 1 minute. Tick. Riley drew in a slow breath, the kind she had been taught to take when someone was bleeding out, and there was no room for panic in the tent. Her thumb slid over the screen. Who is this? She hit send and lifted her eyes back to the street lamp. The man was still there, waiting. The reply came faster than it should have. 3 dots blinked at the bottom of the screen. They vanished, came back, vanished again. The tiny rhythm felt like a new kind of heartbeat. You already know. Her throat went tight. Riley swallowed and made herself look up from the phone. The man under the lamp had not moved. The angle of his head, though, was different now. Tilted as if he was studying her through the windshield. A memory rose without permission. A figure standing outside a canvas flap, half lit by the generator lights, listening to someone scream on a radio. The same kind of stillness. Coiled, not frozen. Her thumbs hovered over the keys. If you are watching me, just say it. She erased the words before they fully formed. What do you want? She sent that instead. Outside the hospital, doors whispered open and shut as staff drifted out into the evening. Nobody looked twice at the man under the lamp. He did not look twice at anyone but her. Another buzz. We need to talk. She stared at the letters. There was no name, no greeting, no code phrase, just that. Her fingers tightened around the phone until her knuckles hurt. About what? About the man whose heart you just kept beating. Her skin went cold. General Alden. She did not type the name. She did not have to. He will not stop until Alden is dead. Riley heard the words more than she read them. They sat in her mind with a familiar weight. This was not how a stranger talked about a headline. This sounded like an op, like someone discussing an unfinished job. She drew a slow breath and let it out through her teeth. Who are you? The answer came on the next buzz. Wrong question. Her pulse climbed another step. The dashboard clock clicked in the silence. Tick. She looked past the phone again. The man under the street lamp had turned his head fully now. Even at a distance, she could feel his eyes on her measuring. Nobody from Phoenix, nobody from this hospital. No one here knew her as Doc. That name belonged to one small group of people. Riley wet her lips. You have the wrong person, she wrote. I am not a doctor. 3 dots flashed. You patched up a 4-star with your mouth? Same thing. He paused. The dots blinked again. You did good, Doc. Anger flickered under the fear. She did not want his approval. She did not want anything from whoever this was. Last time someone called me, that she typed, he died. She sent it before she could decide not to. The answer took longer this time. She could hear her own breathing in the confined space of the car. You are supposed to be dead too. The words bent the air inside the cabin. Riley read them twice. Her chest felt hollow as if someone had reached in and scooped something out. She thought of the official report she had never seen. 3 presumed KIA, Valley Middle East, no bodies recovered. Debriefers who would not meet her eyes when she asked about names. Files stamped with black ink. Riley shut her eyes for a moment. So were you, she replied. When she opened her eyes, the man under the lamp was no longer looking at her. He took 1 step back, then another. He did not hurry. He did not turn his back. He moved at the measured pace of someone who had already seen every angle in the lot and knew where every camera pointed. At the edge of the light, he disappeared into the dark between 2 parked cars. The spot under the street lamp looked suddenly ordinary, a circle of pale concrete and nothing else. Her phone buzzed again. Drive home, Doc. She stared at the words until they blurred. Riley dropped the phone into the cup holder, started the engine, and pulled out of the space. Her hands were steady on the wheel. The steadiness felt forced, like a pose she was holding too long. On the way out of the lot, she glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing but empty spaces and the low chain-link fence. The drive to her apartment usually took 15 minutes. That night it felt both shorter and longer. Every red light stopped her heart for a beat. Every car that stayed behind her more than 2 turns became a possible tale in her mind. She told herself she was being paranoid. She had been telling herself that for years. It had never once made the feeling go away. She scanned every intersection, every cross street. Neon signs of strip malls blinked in the dark. A group of teenagers crossed in front of her, laughing, their world small and unbroken. Her phone vibrated twice on the passenger seat. She did not look until she was parked in her usual spot under the crooked palm tree outside her building. 2 new texts waited. "They used you today, Doc. Same way they used all of us." Riley stared at the messages. Heat rose up her chest, not from the Arizona evening, but from something deeper and older. Used. The word pulled her back 12 years. To a mission brief that had promised quick insertion and extraction. To a calm voice on the radio that had said, "You are covered." To the same voice hours later, flat and final, saying negative on air support. She locked the car and climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, every sense on alert. The hallway light flickered as she passed. No sound behind the door as she walked by except a television murmuring in Spanish and someone coughing twice. Inside, she shut the door and slid the deadbolt with a soft click. That sound always relaxed something in most people. It did not relax anything in her. It simply marked another layer that could be broken. Her apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a narrow living room, a kitchen barely large enough for a table. The walls were the color of unbaked bread. The only decorations were a plant that might or might not survive on the windowsill and a single frame print that came with the place. It did not look like a home, it looked like a staging area. Riley walked straight to the bedroom closet, pulled the chain on the light, and reached up to the top shelf. Her fingers found canvas and rough nylon. She dragged the old pack down and set it on the bed. The duffel had faded from deep green to something closer to gray. The name stenciled on the side had been scrubbed with solvent years ago, but the shadow of the letters lingered barely visible. She paused with her hands on the zipper. Nobody from the hospital knew about this bag. It was the one piece of her old life she had never been able to throw away. She pulled the zipper. Inside, the smell hit her first. Not strong, not fresh, but still there. Cloth that had once been soaked with sweat. Sand ground deep into stitching. A faint metallic tang that no washing could ever fully erase. On top lay a folded combat tourniquet, Velcro still stiff. Next to it, vacuum-sealed field dressings, the labels printed in tiny black text. A small hard case held a cracked satellite phone, its screen spiderwebbed. She brushed the edge of a patch that had been pinned to the lining. A black bird-shaped wings outstretched. Under it, white letters, Raven 12. Her fingers stilled over it. Riley reached deeper and drew out a dog tag on a chain. The metal had darkened edges scratched. The stamped letters were still clear. Ray S.J. She balanced the tag in her palm and closed her hand around it. The cool metal pressed into her skin. A sound that was not in the room filled her head. The chop of helicopter blades fighting hot air radios, hissing, someone yelling coordinates over the roar. "Corpsman, we are pinned. We need that bird. We are not going to hold this ridge. Doc, talk to me. Stay with me, Doc." She sank to sit on the edge of the bed, elbows on her knees, the chain of the tag looped around her fingers. Her phone buzzed again where she had dropped it on the dresser. She did not want to see what it said. She looked anyway. 1 line. "He betrayed us, Riley. He left us to die." Her chest tightened. The betrayal had been a fact in her mind for so long it had become part of her. A decision made far above her head by a man whose name she did not know then. A man who had chosen not to send help. She had never had a face to attach it to until she heard the words, General Victor Alden. Now, someone who signed his messages like ghosts from that valley was telling her the story was simple. He betrayed us. He left us. Riley leaned back, eyes on the crack in the ceiling paint. Her thumbs moved again. "You do not know that." The answer came quickly. "I heard him. I heard his voice. Negative on air support. You do not forget the sound of the man who writes your death sentence." She closed her eyes. She could hear that old transmission too if she tried. The words, not the speaker. The flat tone of someone who had already made up his mind. She typed slowly. "Then why are you texting me instead of finishing what you started at the parade?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Because Alden is not the only one they used. Because they put your name in the wind for a reason. Because you are the only person I will not shoot on sight." Riley sat up straighter. "What do you mean, put my name in the wind?" No reply came right away. She stared at the screen until the letters blurred. The silence from the phone felt deliberate. A sudden sharp knock sounded at her door. Her whole body reacted, muscles tightening, heart slamming up into her throat. The dog tag bit into her palm. She moved quietly to the living room, setting the tag down on the table as she passed. She snatched up a lamp by the couch without even noticing she had done it. At the peephole, she saw 2 men in suits in the hallway. No hospital scrubs, no delivery uniforms. One held something up at eye level. A badge. 3 letters sat in the center of the shield. CIA. Riley stayed at the peephole a few seconds too long. The badge did not blur. The letters stayed sharp. She set the lamp down near the couch, forced the tension out of her shoulders one breath at a time, and opened the door on the chain. "Ms. Kane?" the taller man asked. His voice carried just enough authority to sound practiced. "I am Agent Cole Thompson." He held the badge closer so she could see it through the gap. The seal, the letters, the photograph. Everything looked real in the tired light of the hallway. "Who is with you?" she said. "Agent Ward." The second man gave a short nod. His eyes scanned past her shoulder, taking in what little he could see of the apartment. "We would prefer to talk inside. Only a few minutes." Riley clicked the chain free and stepped back. "If you are selling anything," she said, "I am not buying." Thompson's mouth twitched, almost a smile, then settled back into a neutral line. "We are not here to sell, he said. "We are here to make sure you stay alive." They entered single file, suits neatly pressed, shoes that did not squeak. They brought with them a faint scent of aftershave and printer toner. Riley shut the door and slid the deadbolt again. She did not like having her back to them, so she moved around to the other side of the small living room near the kitchen counter where she could see both the door and their hands. Thompson took in the space with one unhurried glance. Couch lamp, bare walls, the unrolled duffel on the bed, visible through the open bedroom door. "Traveling light, Ms. Kane," he said. "Rent is expensive," she replied. Ward said nothing. He remained near the door, weight balanced evenly, hands loose at his sides, watching. Thompson eased himself into the armchair without waiting to be invited. It creaked slightly under his weight. He rested his forearms on his knees, badge still visible in his hand. "You worked quite a miracle at Verity today, qui sabditu?" He said. "General Alden is breathing because of you." "I was on shift," Riley answered. "I did my job." "Your job description does not usually include battlefield thoracic guidance." Thompson tilted his head. "At least not in the civilian sector." Her chest tightened. She kept her face still. "Doctors talk," he continued. "Residents talk more. One of them described someone sounding very much like a Navy corpsman walking a seasoned surgeon through a pericardial extraction." He let the word corpsman hang between them. Riley did not pick it up. "I was a medic," she said slowly. "A long time ago. In a unit called Raven 12. It was not a question. The room seemed to shrink around the name. Ward glanced toward the bedroom where the edge of the duffel and its faded bird patch still showed. If he noticed the detail, he did not comment. Riley felt the dog tag chain still wrapped loosely around her fingers. She had forgotten she was holding it until the metal shifted. "Your file says you died with the rest of them," Thompson said. "Yet here you are. That kind of clerical error does not happen by itself." "It was not my paperwork," she said. "I did not fill it out." For the first time, something like respect flickered in his eyes. "We have been tracking chatter since the parade," Thompson said. "Someone took 3 shots at General Alden in front of a city full of cameras. 2 in the air, 1 in his chest. That was not a panicked amateur. That was someone sending a message." Riley could still see the man under the street lamp in her mind if she let herself. "You think the shooter knows me," she said. "We know the shooter knows you." Thompson sat back a fraction. He used a handle tied to Raven 12 on an encrypted channel years ago, then went dark. The same handle surfaced tonight, with your name attached. Riley's mouth felt dry. "You intercepted my messages." Thompson's expression did not change. "We monitor certain traffic, he said. Tonight that traffic included a man very interested in the nurse who pulled a bullet out of Alden without touching a scalpel. They used you today, Doc, same way they used all of us." The last texts on her phone felt heavier now. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "We want you safe," Thompson replied. "And we want him in custody." Ward finally spoke, his voice softer than she expected. "He will not walk away this time," he said. "He has already shown he is willing to take a shot in public." Riley shifted the chain of the dog tag, cool against her palm. "And you think I am what?" she said, "bait on a hook?" Thompson did not deny it. "He will not kill you," Thompson said. "He made that very clear. That makes you the one person we can put near him without expecting body bags." Riley almost laughed. It came out thinner than she liked. "I was not aware I signed up for that," she said. "None of you did," Thompson answered. The quiet after that statement carried too many layers. Riley studied his face. There was an edge of something there under the professional calm. Fatigue, maybe, or his own list of ghosts. "What is his name?" she said. Thompson watched her carefully. "You really do not know," he said. Riley thought of the man under the street lamp, of the way he stood, the way he moved, of a voice shouting through static 12 years ago, joking about bad coffee before the world tore open. "I have an idea," she said. "I want to hear you say it." Thompson nodded once. "Jonah Reyes," Fahad said. "Former Special Operations, presumed killed in action. Just like you." The room seemed to tilt. Riley leaned her hip against the counter to ground herself. She had never seen Jonah's body. They had told her the bird that carried him out never made it to base, that the wreckage was in pieces too small to collect. For years she had carried him as a weight around her neck and a name in after-action reports. Alive somewhere. Taking shots at Alden. "When you let my name out," Riley said quietly, "you knew he would come." Thompson's jaw tightened a fraction. "Your name was going to surface regardless," he said. "Reporters were already digging. We chose to manage the leak instead of chasing it." She stared at him. "You put my name out there," she said. "You brought him to my doorstep, and now you are here to tell me you want me safe." "We want you controlled," Ward said. There was no malice in it, only plain truth. "Safe is part of that." Thompson glanced at his partner, then back at Riley. "We would like to move you to a secure location tonight, he said. "We have units in the area. We can have you out of this building in 10 minutes. Riley looked around her small apartment, the couch, the plant, the walls. None of it mattered. None of it felt worth defending. The part of her that wanted to say yes was the part that remembered how it felt to have a perimeter and guards and watch rotations. Another part of her remembered being told she was covered, then listening to the sky stay empty. "If you know where he is," she said, "why are you not there instead of here?" "We do not know," Thompson replied. "We know he is watching you. That is a different thing." Riley stayed silent. She could feel his eyes on her, measuring how far he could push. "Think about it," he said finally, standing. "We will be downstairs for a while longer. If you change your mind, call this number." He placed a card on the coffee table. Black print, no logo, just a name and digits. Ward took one last look around the room. His gaze paused for a fraction on the edge of the duffel and the patch inside, then moved on. "Lock your door," he said. They stepped into the hall. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Riley stood very still. The apartment hummed with the low buzz of the refrigerator and the distant plumbing from another unit. The quiet felt loud after their departure. She picked up the card, turned it over once, then slid it under the plant pot on the windowsill. The duffel on the bed lay open, its contents exposed. She walked back into the bedroom and set the dog tag gently on top of the field dressings. Her phone was still on the dresser. No new messages had appeared. The conversation sat on the screen, the last lines cooling. "Because you are the only person I will not shoot on sight." She turned the phone face down. The clock on the microwave in the kitchen read 21, then 43. Riley showered, let the hot water beat against the back of her neck until the skin flushed. When she stepped out, steam curled along the ceiling and fogged the small mirror. Her reflection was a blurred outline. She wiped a line clear with the side of her hand. In the fogged glass for a heartbeat, she saw herself younger with a different haircut and a sand-colored uniform behind her. Then the steam shifted, and it was just the tiny bathroom again. She pulled on an old t-shirt and shorts and moved back to the living room. The lamp by the couch cast a warm circle on the floor. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere far off, then faded. Riley sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, letting her body feel the weight of the day. The general's chest under bright lights. Hale's voice in her ear. The man under the lamp. The badge. The texts. Deep inside her muscles, she had trained to stay ready, refused to fully unclench. A soft creak sounded from the kitchen. Old buildings settle, she told herself. Pipes knock. Wood shifts. The second creak did not sound like wood. It sounded like rubber on linoleum, very light, very controlled. Riley's spine straightened. The hairs on her arms rose. She did not call out. Her eyes went to the lamp she had set down earlier. It was within reach. So was the hallway to the bedroom. The door was locked. The deadbolt was in place. She rose without rushing, walked toward the kitchen as if she just remembered to get a glass of water. As she passed the end of the couch, a shadow detached itself from the darker corner near the fridge. He moved fast, hand reaching for her wrist, the other for her shoulder. His grip was strong but not clumsy. He turned his body to pin her against the wall in one smooth motion. Riley twisted instinct older than the apartment, snapping into place. Her elbow drove toward his ribs. He absorbed the hit, grunted, adjusted. She stomped down on his foot, rolled her shoulder, tried to slip under his arm. They collided with the edge of the counter. Something glass toppled and shattered on the tile. His breath was close, clean with a hint of metal and coffee. No alcohol. He reached for her right hand. She let him take the wrist, then used the leverage to pivot, bringing her knee up toward his thigh. He blocked with his leg. They were both breathing harder now, but the movement stayed tight, efficient. No wasted swings. He went for her neck. She dropped her chin, raised her forearm, deflecting his hand. Her fingers brushed fabric over armor under his shirt. Armor in her kitchen. She drove her shoulder into his chest. They stumbled into the living room. The lamp tipped, the light swung, throwing their shadows huge against the walls. His hand flashed toward his belt. The gleam of a blade caught the lamplight. Riley reacted without thinking. She kicked his wrist. The knife spun out of his fingers and skidded across the floor, disappearing under the couch. They broke apart for a breath, facing each other. He wore a dark mask fabric covering his nose and mouth. The eyes above it met hers, steady, assessing. Familiar. Recognition buzzed at the edge of her mind, not quite forming. They circled steps slow, both choosing distance now. Riley felt the night air on her skin cool through the thin t-shirt. Sweat slid down between her shoulder blades. He moved first a feint toward her left that turned into a grab at her right arm. She countered, grabbed his sleeve, used his momentum to jerk him forward. He stumbled, hand hitting the coffee table. The lamp crashed to the floor. The bulb burst, plunging the room into near darkness. Only the light from the street outside seeped through the curtains, thin and gray. They froze for a fraction of a second, letting their eyes adjust. Riley lunged. Her hand caught the edge of his mask, fingers curling into the fabric. He tried to pull away. The cloth tore. The mask slipped down. The next moment drew itself out into one long clear line. Face older, leaner, marked with a scar near the temple. Eyes a shade she remembered from nights in a tent lit by red lamps. Jaw set in the same stubborn angle. His mouth formed her name. Riley. Her hands dropped. Her legs almost did. Jonah, she said. The name tasted foreign and familiar at once. For a moment, neither of them moved. The sounds outside the apartment pressed in, a car passing. Someone closing a door in another unit. The faint whir of the refrigerator. Up close, she could see the lines at the corners of his eyes that had not been there before. The streak of gray at his hairline. You are alive, he said. It came out more accusation than relief. So are you, she answered. They stood in the dim room, breathing hard, surrounded by broken glass and overturned furniture as if they had dragged the battlefield in with them. Jonah bent slowly, picked up the torn scrap of his mask, and let it fall onto the coffee table. You hit harder than I remember, he said. You tried to stab me in my living room, she replied. Fair point. Silence slid in again, slower this time. Riley looked at him, at the man she had buried in her mind and carried on a chain, at the man who had watched her in the parking lot and texted her from an unknown number. You shot Alden, Wachau, she said. His jaw tightened. I grazed him, he said. If I had wanted him dead, we would not be talking about it. She thought of the blood on the general's uniform, the hole in his chest, the way his heart had fluttered on the monitor. People at that parade could have died, she said. They did not. His eyes flashed. I took 3 shots, 2 into the sky, 1 into a man who left us in that valley. Riley shook her head slowly. You heard a voice, she said. You do not know it was his. He stepped closer, stopping at the distance where he could have reached for her but did not. I know the sound of a man giving up on us, he said. I heard that voice say negative on air support. I heard your voice on the same channel begging him to reconsider. Her throat closed for a moment. The memory was sharp enough to cut. Somebody signed our death order that night, Jonah said. Those 3 stars on Alden's chest are as good a signature as any. He has 4 now, Riley said. Jonah let out a short, humorless breath. Promotion suits him, he said. She studied him, the way his hands flexed and stilled. the way his eyes tracked each small movement in the room even while he spoke. "You texted me," she said. "You told me they used us, that they put my name out to draw you." He nodded once. "I was off-grid, he said. "You know what that means. No phone, no paper trail. Then, today, out of nowhere, some local anchor is talking about a mystery nurse who saved a 4-star with combat skills. Your name is in the scroll." "I did not give it to them," Riley said. "I know, Payam," Jonah replied. "The agency did. They needed bait. They picked the one person I would not shoot." His gaze slid to the duffel still open on the bed, the patch visible. "You should have thrown that away," he said quietly. She felt the weight of those years between them. The missions, the briefings, the way he used to grin before a jump and say it would be easy. "It is the only thing I kept," she said. Jonah's shoulders shifted. Something that might have been regret crossed his face, and was gone. Outside, faint at first, came the distant sound of sirens. Not one, several. Layers of rising and falling tones weaving together. Riley glanced toward the window. Red and blue washed faintly against the curtains pulsing. Jonah followed her gaze, his mouth pressed into a thin line. "You feel that," he said, air getting heavy. The light strobed again on the fabric. The sirens grew louder. The texture of the night changed like pressure before a storm. The sirens grew louder, layering over each other until the sound filled the apartment. Riley moved to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch with 2 fingers. Outside the street that usually held 3 parked cars and a sagging palm tree now glittered with lights. 2 black SUVs, 1 unmarked sedan, 1 police cruiser. Red and blue pulsed over stucco walls and cracked pavement. Figures stepped out all in dark gear, some in suits, some with vests that caught the light in hard rectangles. No neighbors stood outside, no curious faces at windows. Either they had learned not to look or someone had told them to stay away. Jonah stood in the center of the living room, eyes narrowed. He did not rush to the door, did not reach for the knife under the couch. His hands flexed at his sides, then relaxed. "They moved fast," Hun said. "They were already here," Riley answered. "They were waiting for you to show." A loudspeaker crackled a life voice, distorted but clear enough through the glass. "Jonah Reyes, this is the Central Intelligence Agency. We know you are inside. Step out with your hands where we can see them." The tone was firm, almost polite. It wrapped around a steel core. Riley let the curtain fall back into place. "They have a sniper," Jonah said. He was not guessing. He tilted his head slightly as if listening for metal on metal. Roof across the street, angle on the front door. Her stomach dropped. "You can tell that from here," she said. "I can feel it," he replied. "Been on the other end too many times." Another crackle. "Jonah Reyes, step out with your hands up. This can end clean." Riley turned from the window. "They said they wanted you alive," she said. "They told me that downstairs." Jonah gave her a look that landed somewhere between tired and amused. "They want me contained," he said. "Alive is optional if I make the wrong move." The sirens had cut off, now replaced by the low hum of vehicle engines and the faint buzz of radios. The apartment vibrated with tension. "They leaked my name," Riley said. "They pulled you in. They stand outside my building with rifles and loudspeakers and say they are here to keep me safe." Jonah stepped closer. The space between them held the smell of sweat and broken drywall. "You are not the only one they pulled," he said. "Alden is part of this. The press, the optics. They cannot afford me wandering around with what I know." "What do you know exactly?" she said. His eyes met hers. "I know that someone with authority cut us off in that valley," he summoned. He said. "I know contracts were involved that never made it into the official record. I know that when we called for help, the answer was no, and I know Alden sat high enough to sign it." "You think," she said. "I believe," he corrected. "Belief gets you this far." Outside, the loudspeaker boomed again, sharper now. "Reyes, this is your last warning. Come out. No weapons, no surprises." Riley pictured the setup outside. Cars angled for cover, doors open. Agents behind them, rifles balanced on the frames. One person on the mic, one person with binoculars. One person behind glass, far away, watching a live feed, ready to approve whatever came next. "How many exits in this place?" Jonah asked. "One stairwell," she said. "Back balcony drops into an alley, but if they planned this, they have someone there." He nodded once. "They do." He looked around her small living room. The couch, the broken lamp, the shards of glass catching light, the duffel on the bed. "You could run," he said. "Take that bag, go out the back, disappear before they tighten the net." Riley shook her head. "They have my name now," she said. "There is nowhere I could run they could not follow." He watched her for a moment. "You are smarter than most of their assets," he said. I am not your asset, she said. Neither am I, he replied. That is the problem. A beat of silence passed between them. The loudspeaker snapped again. Jonah Reyes, on your knees when you exit, hands locked behind your head, any sudden movement and we will respond. Riley could hear doors in the building opening and closing somewhere below, brief muffled voices. They were starting to move residents out. Clear the blast radius. You cannot win a shootout with the street, she said. Not out there. He smiled a little. There was no joy in it. I did not come here to win a shootout, he said. Then why did you come, she asked. His eyes softened just for a second. To see if you were real, he said. They told me you died, then they threw your name on the news. I needed to know which version was true. Her throat tightened. You saw me, she said. I did, Hepsa, he said. You were patching up the man who killed our team. I had to make myself believe I was seeing that right. You do not know it was him, she said again quieter. His gaze shifted toward the door. I know he is the one wearing the record, Jonah said. And I know somebody wants him protected enough to throw you into the open. Riley stepped in front of him. Do not go out there, she said. They have a sniper. You said it yourself. If I stay, Pyo, he said, they come in. They are not going to sit on their hands while we chat. That puts you between me and their bullets. I am not doing that. You do not decide where bullets land, she said. Tonight I decide where I stand when they start flying, he replied. Her hands balled at her sides. They will bury you, she said. They already did, he answered. The loudspeaker cut through the room again. Reyes, now, door open, hands visible. Jonah took a breath and rolled his shoulders back, a small reset of posture she remembered from before jumps and breaches. Stay inside, he said to her. Away from the windows. Whatever they do out there, do not step between us. Riley almost said no. The word pressed against her teeth. She swallowed it. He picked his way around the broken glass toward the door. Each step was careful, deliberate. He reached for the lock and paused. You kept my tag, he said without looking back. It is on the table, she said. He nodded. Do me a favor, he said. If I make it past tonight, do not let them convince you this was for nothing. She did not answer. She did not know how. He opened the door. Light flooded the hallway from the street. Voices sharpened. Hands up, Reyes. Step into view. Riley stayed where she was, halfway between the couch and the kitchen, heart pounding. She could see a slice of the outside world through the doorframe. Jonah lifted his hands slowly, fingers spread. He stepped out onto the concrete walkway that ran along the second floor. The wash of red and blue painted his face in hard colors. From her angle, she saw the line of agents below, rifles up, the black shapes of vehicles, the gleam of scopes. On the roof of the building across the narrow street, a small glint caught her eye. She followed it and saw the outline of a prone figure, rifle extended barrel trained on Jonah's head. Her stomach lurched. He is surrendering, she shouted, voice cracking as it left her. Her words vanished into the noise. On your knees, someone called through the speaker. Jonah looked straight ahead. For a moment, he glanced sideways toward her doorway. Their eyes met across the distance. He dropped to his knees. Hands still above his head, he laced them behind his neck. Agents surged forward up the stairs, boots pounding on concrete. Two reached him first, forcing him forward, pushing his chest toward the railing, snapping cuffs around his wrists. Riley took a step toward the door before she realized she was moving. Stay inside, Ms. Kane. Agent Thompson's voice came from below. She looked down and saw him standing beside one of the SUV's, face tipped up, eyes on her. There is no need for you to be out here, he called. We have it under control. You brought him here, she fired back. You leaked me. He came because of that. Thompson did not flinch. We also stopped him from putting another bullet in Alden, he said. That is the count tonight. The agents pulled Jonah to his feet. He did not resist. He looked up at Riley one last time. Even from that distance, she could see something loosen in his face, like a knot releasing. He did not try to speak. There was no space for words between sirens and shouted commands. They loaded him into the back of a dark vehicle. The door slammed shut with a solid thud. Engines revved. One by one, the cars pulled away, taking Jonah and the team with them. The sirens stayed silent as they drove off, lights spinning without sound. Within minutes, the street had emptied. The palm tree swayed in the hot night breeze, leaves rustling like faint applause. Riley stood in her doorway, fingers pressed into the metal frame until they ached. Her apartment behind her smelled like dust and broken glass. Her living room looked like a fight had happened in the center of it, which was true. She backed inside and closed the door. The quiet that followed was different from the quiet before. Before there had been the sense of something approaching. Now there was only the echo of what had been taken. She sank down on the couch, eyes on the dog tag where it lay on the table. The letters on it caught the leftover light. Reyes J. She picked it up and closed her hand around it. Her phone lay abandoned on the arm of the couch. No new messages, no blinking dots. The last words from Jonah on the screen were about betrayal and voices on a radio. Riley leaned her head back against the wall and stared at the ceiling. Sirens faded in the distance. Somewhere above her, the building creaked as it settled. The clock on her microwave clicked over to the next minute. Tick, morning came in flat hospital light. Riley walked back into Verity with her badge on a lanyard that felt heavier than usual. The parking lot was empty of black SUVs now. Only the usual patchwork of sedans and old pickups remained tired in the Arizona sun. Inside, the air held a different kind of charge. Security had doubled at the entrance. A metal detector stood near the doors that had not been there the day before. 2 military police in camouflage checked IDs alongside hospital guards. "Badge, please," one of them said. She held it out. His eyes flicked from the plastic card to her face. A beat of recognition passed there, faint but real. "You are the nurse from yesterday," he said quietly. Riley nodded once. "My uncle watched the parade on TV," he added. "He says you saved his commanding officer." "I helped keep him alive," she said. "That is what we do here." He let her pass. The elevator ride to the ICU was short, only 2 floors, yet it gave her enough time to feel each rise in her chest. The dog tag hung under her scrub top, cool against her skin chain resting in the hollow at the base of her throat. The ICU hallway was bright and quiet, a contrast to the noise from downstairs. Machines hummed in rooms behind glass. Nurses moved steadily, voices low. 2 military police flanked one particular door. Their rifles were not visible, but their posture made their training clear. "Name," one of them requested. "Riley Kane," she said, "ICU nurse. I was part of the team last night." They looked at each other, then at a clipboard. "General Alden has restricted visitors," the taller one said. "But your name is on the list." He stepped aside and opened the door. Inside, the room smelled of plastic and gauze and the faint citrus of cleaning solution. The blinds were half open, letting in a soft wash of desert morning. General Victor Alden lay propped up on pillows, an oxygen cannula under his nose monitors, tracing careful lines beside him. His hair was flattened on one side, the skin around the bandages on his chest slightly bruised. When he saw her, his eyebrows lifted. "You are the nurse," he said, voice rough. "The one who kept my heart from leaking out." Riley closed the door gently behind her and stepped to the side of the bed. "Riley Kane," she said, "you gave us enough of a fight to make it worth the trouble." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "That is what they pay me for," he murmured. She did not sit yet. Her hands rested lightly on the rail fingers, not quite gripping. "I'm here on my break," she said. "The team is watching your vitals. You are stable." "Stable is new," Alden said. His gaze sharpened. "You have the look of someone who did not come here to talk about my blood pressure." She met his eyes. The words she had rehearsed in the elevator scattered. Another set rose up, older, heavier. 12 years ago," she said, "a unit with the call sign Raven 12 went into a valley in the Middle East. The plan was simple: go and secure call for extraction. The radio logs say they requested air support and were denied." Alden's eyes did not leave her face, but something shifted in them. Recognition, then a shadow. "Raven 12, he repeated. "I have not heard that name out loud in a long time." "I was the corpsman," Riley said. "We called for help. We were told no. 2 of us went out on a bird that never made it. The third was listed as KIA on paper and walked out on foot." Silence settled in the room for a heartbeat. The monitor beside him continued its steady beeping. Her own pulse felt louder. "And you think I am the one who said no," Alden said. There was no anger in his tone, only tired understanding. "I think someone with enough authority did," she replied. "My teammate believes it was you. He believes it enough to follow you across a parade route." Alden closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "I never heard your call," he said. The words were simple. They landed with the weight of years. Riley frowned. "With respect, General," she said, "someone heard it." He drew in a breath shallow around the bandages. "After the operation," he said, 2 things came across my desk. A casualty report on Raven 12 and a quiet investigation into a signals officer named Harris, Captain Daniel Harris. The name did not ring any bells in her mind. That did not surprise her. Signals officers lived in tents and trailers, sent orders through wires. They rarely made it into the field stories. Harris was responsible for that sector's communications, Alden continued. He had access to transmission logs, routing authority, all of it. Then we found some irregularities, missing chunks of audio, logs that did not match timestamps, bank records that did not fit a captain's pay. "A bribe?" Riley said. "Several," Alden answered. "For moving information, for delaying it, for altering it. By the time my people realized that your unit was out there without the support it should have had, the window had closed. The airspace was locked. I put everything I had into reopening it. I did not get there in time." His hand moved restlessly over the blanket fingers, twitching as if searching for purchase. I signed off on your casualty report based on his data, Alden said. 3 presumed dead, no bodies recovered, classified no next of kin notified. I tried to push for more, but the file disappeared into deeper drawers. Riley listened, each piece sliding into place with a harsh kind of clarity. You carried it, she said, thinking it was your failure. I carried the possibility on, he replied, that if I had dug harder sooner, some of you might have lived. I did not know one of you did until you walked into my room, told my surgeon where to put his hands, and saved my life. He looked at her directly, and she saw no deflection there, no easy excuse. If I could trade that bullet for your valley, he said, I would. The monitor ticked out its small green pulses. Riley became aware of her own hand on the rail. Her knuckles had gone white around the metal. For years, she said, I hated a man without a face. It was easier than believing in bad luck. It is easier to aim anger than to sit with questions, Alden said. She thought of Jonah on his knees in the bright wash of lights, head tilted toward the sniper she had spotted on the roof, of his certainty that Alden had signed away their lives. He believes he heard your voice, she said. Harris used my authority, Alden replied. He forged my initials on orders, lifted my phrasing from other transmissions. There are recordings that sound like me. They were not me. Riley exhaled slowly. Does anyone know where Harris is now? She asked. Alden's mouth tightened. Men like that do not end up in regular prisons, he said. Last I heard, he was somewhere with no windows under a program with so many acronyms it barely exists. The idea that the true architect of that night sat in a room without sky did not feel clean. It did not undo the bodies in the valley, but it shifted the aim of the story. Alden watched her. You are not here to comfort an old man's conscience, he said. What do you need from me, Ms. Kane? She thought about it. Her mind flicked through images. Jonah in cuffs, Thompson's face under the streetlights, her own reflection in the fogged mirror. I needed to know if you were the enemy, she said finally. And now, he asked. She looked at his hand resting on the blanket. Old scars marked the skin lighter lines across the tan. You are another survivor, she said. Something in his shoulders eased. He reached out slow and careful and laid his hand over hers where it rested on the rail. The gesture was small, but it closed a circle that had been open too long. Thank you, he said, for coming here, for asking, for yesterday. Riley squeezed his hand once, then released it. When she stepped back into the hallway, Dr. Hale was waiting at the nurse's station. He held a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold from the way he rolled it in his palms. You just cannot stay away from high-profile patients, he said. She gave him a tired look. They keep coming to us, she said. I'm just here for the coffee. He snorted. This is not coffee, he said. This is punishment. His gaze softened. You did good work, he added. Yesterday, you know that. He is stable, she said. That is all that matters. That is not all, Hale replied. He hesitated, then continued. Listen, administration is talking about extending your contract, permanently. If you want to stick around, we could use someone who does not panic when a 4-star bleeds on the floor. Riley glanced down the hallway where the door to Alden's room stood closed again, guards in place. Let me get through this week, she said. Then I will think about the rest. Hale nodded. Offer stands, or he said. He lifted his cup. Try not to save anyone too important before lunch. I have rounds. He walked away, leaving her with the beeping and the quiet and the soft scuff of shoes on linoleum. Later, when her shift ended, she moved up to the small rooftop terrace that staff used for air. The sun hung low, throwing long shadows across the city. Phoenix spread out in a grid of roofs and roads and palm trees. The air up here felt cleaner. No antiseptic, no exhaust, just warm wind and a faint hint of dry earth. Riley leaned on the concrete ledge, looking toward the horizon. The dog tag rested against her chest on its chain. Under her fingers, the metal warmed slowly. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out. A new text from an unknown number, but not the same as before. This one had a code at the start that marked it as an internal channel. Reyes is in federal custody, the message read. He is talking to lawyers. We are reviewing tapes on Harris. Thought you should know. No signature, but she knew who had sent it. She typed a reply. If you go after Harris, you will need someone who understands what he did on the ground. There was a brief pause, then, we will be in touch, Ms. Kane. She slid the phone back into her pocket. The city below glowed in the late light windows, catching sun in brief flashes. Cars moved along the freeway in slow lines. Somewhere in all that motion, people were going about their days, unaware of the way a decision in a valley, 12 years ago, still rippled through rooms and hearts. Riley let her hands rest on the rough concrete. Scars on her knuckles brushed the stone. For the first time in a long while, the sense of constant, invisible countdown inside her mind softened. The clock above the terrace doorway ticked steady and unhurried. She watched the sky shift from bright gold to softer orange and then to the first hint of dusk, and she did not feel like she was running from anything. Not from the hospital behind her. Not from the valley in her memory. Not from the names on the chain around her neck. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.